Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank with the Forum's Jeff Kolpack. I'm WDAY Sports Director Dom Izzo, as we are at the finish line of the FCS spring regular season. It's like Kramer at the end of the AIDS run that he had there, going across the finish line, dragging himself across. That's what we're doing here at the end of the FCS regular season.
I'm just starting right now. I'm a little cranky today.
Ooh. All right. Well, we should have put a warning out before we got going here. As North Dakota State and South Dakota State, the game of the year in the FCS, set to be played on the final weekend of the season. Game that was supposed to be played 2 weeks ago was postponed.
Game I was supposed to play last fall
was postponed. I'll say this, and I mentioned this on my show on Monday. For Bison fans, thank that USD already had a game postponed and was moved to this weekend, or else the Bison are playing the Coyotes and not the Jackrabbits this weekend.
Well, that's a great point, and certainly puts a little better emphasis on this weekend. But I don't know. I'm not into it, man. Dakota Marker week.
No, and that's the way I felt the entire spring. I'm excited about the game tomorrow.
True.
I think it'll be a good game tomorrow, but I felt this way about...
I'm excited about our pregame show. I'm excited about the game. And
bracketology tomorrow night. I know you're pumped about that.
I got a location to be disclosed later.
I'm excited about all that, but it goes just, hand in toe with everything that we've been talking about this entire spring.
How about, here's why I'm cranky. Here's one reason.
Okay.
How about the Idaho coach? Right? Did you see that tweet?
Yep,
Let's play in the spring.
Did.
Why not play in the spring?
He wants
play our bye games in the fall.
Yeah.
And
so he means
else.
the FBS games we played in the fall, and then the regular season will be played in the spring, which is something David Pollock said out loud last July when this was getting floated that the FCS was going to move to the spring.
I think it kind of explains a lot why Idaho has been so average to mundane to really mediocre, is when you have that kind of backward thinking.
Yeah,
Idaho came down. I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Idaho came down from the FBS, right? And everybody thought, okay, oh my God, they're going to dominate FCS because they have.
I was one of them.
Yeah.
I thought that.
Yeah, they're going to dominate. They're going to dominate, and they're going to take over the Big Sky. And it's been anything but. And you know why? And it came to light this week. They hire morons like this who think football should be played in the spring.
Now, yeah, I won't disagree with that. I think his mindset is to do it full time, so they're not playing, maybe 1 or 2 games in the fall like they did. It doesn't make any sense.
I thought that was a joke. I had to look into it.
Yeah, he meant it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not April 1st. What else could be here?
We've had enough jokes for the FCS this spring.
Was there a parody account here? What's going on? What's in play here?
No.
And no.
That's how he truly feels on that. So,
guy should be roasted. Guy should be fired.
He's not getting fired for that. Idaho beat Eastern Washington, even though the referees missed the field goal on how they won the game. But that's how they won it.
That was so pandemic. The guy was looking at his face mask and was looking.
Did not see the ball go through the upright.
If there's anything that describes the FCS season, that is it right there in one play.
No doubt. So yesterday we had another automatic bid clinched without a team playing because Davidson and Stetson could not play this weekend. Stetson can't because of COVID. And therefore, Davidson wins the automatic bid out of the Pioneer. First time ever for them. They're going to the FCS playoffs. I do want to start, and we'll get obviously to the Bison game in a second, with the news out of Youngstown on Wednesday that the Penguins announced at 5 o'clock Central that they cannot play UND.
Okay, reason 2, I'm cranky.
Okay.
Come on.
So they played all of their games Youngstown had prior to this one. They had played all 7. They were the only team that looked like they were going to get in the clubhouse playing all 8. If they knew they couldn't play, why didn't they not announce this Saturday night or Sunday night, Jeffrey? Monday even.
What changed? I don't know.
I'm dying to know. And this goes back to something you talked about last year. Without a local paper,
I was going to say that
in Youngstown,
nobody's questioning them.
We can't find out about it.
No, there's no questions.
And I'm throwing
being asked.
shade at the TV guys in Youngstown as well. Let's get to the answer. What's going on?
Ask the question.
Right.
At least ask the question.
I mean, ask Tressel, somebody, AD, somebody on
what
this.
happened. And it's a home game. Ask for the fans. The few that were going to the game. The dwindling fan support that is Youngstown State.
Because now
ask them.
This rubber stamps UND into the postseason, in my mind, right? I would think you would agree with that. At 4-1,
you can't keep them out.
They're going to the postseason now. Had they lost the game, they would have been on the bubble. They were on my bubble if they had lost the game to Youngstown.
What
on
if
Saturday.
NDSU on Wednesday said, you know what, we're not playing either? Do they get the auto bid then?
Well, they would have the head-to-heads against UND and Mo State. I would think they probably would on that front. And that probably brings up a point of contention maybe for some Bison fans, like why are they playing this game? There's nothing for them to gain out of this outside of being a Missouri Valley Conference champion again. I would imagine it's out there.
I mean,
right.
integrity.
Correct.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons.
But that's obviously out there now, and none of the Valley teams will have played all 8. Something we talked about early on this year in January that nobody was going to play all 8.
And that's what Patty Viverito, that's why she put 8 out there, and we've said it all along, that if you get 6, call it good, because everybody else scheduled 6.
Yep. And James Madison will play 5 tops on that. Richmond's going to play 4. Delaware's going to play 5.
5.
UND's going to play 5. So here's the thing. UND will now go 5 weeks between games. How is that going to materialize?
There's no blueprint. How do we know?
Right.
How do we know? Here's the thing about the layoff. Okay, South Dakota State hasn't played in a month. All right, and say, well, NDSU didn't play in a month when they went to all those title games. I think one time there was 2 weeks.
Yep. The second time they went down, it was just a 2-week break.
Everything else was 3 weeks. But here's the difference. Those 3 weeks were planned out and orchestrated. Like the first several days were spent with weightlifting and strength and conditioning. And then you took a few days off, and then you started game planning and prepping. You didn't start, stop. So there's a huge difference in preparing your team. NDSU has got that down.
Yes, that is by far.
And you know who is? It's Jim Kramer.
Yep.
Jim Kramer is 100% behind that whole schedule, and that's why they are 8 for 8 in title games.
I had John Stiglmeyer on my show on Thursday, and I asked him about that exact deal. Like, how have you gone about this? And obviously, they had Illinois State prep. That stopped when the Redbirds opted out. Then they were on to NDSU. That stopped when they couldn't play the Bison. Then they were on to USD. That stopped when the Coyotes said they couldn't play. So they have been practicing, but it's only so much. How much practice can you have before you need to play a football game?
He's taking time off.
Right, and they've taken time off as well for the last 4 weeks that they've been off the field. I'm really interested to see how that manifests itself in the first quarter of this game tomorrow with the Jacks.
And especially NDSU, how much can you prep for NDSU? They run the same stuff. It really doesn't change over the years. You could prep an NDSU on one day. In fact, they just take out the file.
I was going to say, right? I mean, if there's any team that knows the Bison better, it's this one, right? I mean, how much practice do you actually need to do for this team?
I mean, you have to school your players.
Prepare, right.
But as far as coaching staff and prep and game plans and things like that, as far as what to expect from the NDSU offense, file. How
about on the flip side for the South Dakota State offense with a freshman quarterback coming in and Mark Gronowski for what the Bison defense is to expect from them tomorrow?
Now, do you get a little gadgety with a freshman quarterback, or do you play it basic? Because everybody goes, Stig's got stuff in his back pocket. Here he comes. But he's had that stuff. You need a veteran quarterback, I think, to do that stuff.
They came to Fargo when Taryn Christian was a junior, and he played amazing, and they still needed a touchdown with 1 second left to win that game. 2017, Easton Stick turned the ball over 5 times, and yet the Bison still had a chance late in that game to win it. So I guess to your point, I think they probably maybe play a little more closer to the vest tomorrow, but they've got some dudes. Obviously, Pierre Strong, if you've got him and he's healthy, you give him the ball and let him go to work.
Yeah, there's nothing gadgety about that.
No.
I mean, they are a hard team to prepare for, South Dakota State. It is a complex offense. That I know.
With the Yankee twins, who are really talented on the outside, the tight end is back. They're a monster there. I mean, they've got some weapons. It's not like just, hey, Kate Johnson is gone and they've fallen off. It's not the case, I think, at all.
No, and there's a lot of pressure on the Bison linebackers in this game into the run-pass conflict that South Dakota State can put you in. They mix things up. They get guys in motion. They change formations. That's all stuff that's difficult to prepare for.
Defensively, this is a different-looking Jackrabbit team. Obviously, Christian Roseboom has finally moved on after 4 years of starting at linebacker. I'm interested on that side for where the Jackrabbits are. They're
solid. I mean,
they're still good. They're not. There's no huge drop off there.
But their interception ratio is amazing.
Yep.
9 interceptions in?
They've been taking it away.
5 games. Are they 5? Yeah.
They've been really good. They've been ball hawkers on that. Now they have had some inconsistency. The second half of that game at Northern Iowa, remember, that game almost frittered away. They almost lost to Youngstown.
Should have lost to Youngstown.
Probably should have lost to Youngstown and Brookings. And then on the flip side, then they had the game of all games when they played down in Carbondale. Stiegelmeier even said it to Matt Zimmer that was probably the best game he's seen the Jacks play in 30 years.
Isn't it amazing what's happened in Carbondale this year?
We'll get to them. We'll get to them in a second.
Yeah, well, SIU literally puts its best game in 10 years on NDSU.
Yep.
And then South Dakota State puts its best game under Stiegelmeier on in the same field. Let's get to him. I'm cranky.
You want to go there?
Let's go.
All right. So,
are you trying to make friends, SIU?
I think you're trying to make enemies, it sounds like.
That's what I'm saying.
So Liz Jarnigan, the athletic director at Southern Illinois, did an interview with Mike Reese, who does obviously the play-by-play for SIU, does a great job on that, and she said the quiet parts out loud, that not thrilled with, obviously, Western Illinois' decision to opt out, not thrilled with Illinois State's decision to do the same, not thrilled that nobody in the Valley has spoken up about it. They've been the only ones vocal. I'll let you go from there.
Nick Hill
has certainly
puts
been
out a
there.
tweet and calls Western Illinois on the carpet, saying, we want to play. We're ready to play.
Yep.
And you didn't. It was just a total bravado kind of a statement. Now the accusation is James Madison didn't want to play. We need to hear the full story.
Yeah,
there.
from what Mike actually talked to JMU and said that they were focusing on conference games first off, and they were not going to look outside the league. So it's not like JMU was ducking SIU. That narrative.
But
needs
for
to be
SIU, threw it that way.
Yeah,
they put it out that way.
They did. Yep.
That was their spin on it.
So what can they possibly gain from this?
They're not going to make the playoffs. I don't know.
So here, I did this. I tweeted this out. I don't know if you saw this tweet this morning. Just this is what the committee is going to have to look at and judge for themselves sometime tomorrow. So if Southern Illinois wins tomorrow against Sela, they'll be 5-3. They'll have 4 ranked wins, including the Bison. Lost the head-to-head with Mo State. Lost to UND convincingly. Lost to SDSU convincingly. Okay? Missouri State is in the clubhouse. They're 5-4. They have 3 ranked wins, the head-to-head against SIU, and a co-conference champion. If I'm looking at those resumes, I'm taking Mo State.
Head-to-head, I think
head-to-head has to mean something.
I think head-to-head is gonna
rule
trump
the day.
all.
It has to rule the day
because there's different games. There's inconsistencies. Some played 7, some played 5, some played 4. I think you got to go head-to-head when it all comes said and done.
And I think you can't lose by 40 at home like SIU did. Doesn't that have to account for something as well?
It's worthy of discussion, yeah.
I don't get this scorched earth
I think
policy.
You need to be playing well at the end of the year, too.
Yep.
That used to be a criteria.
Yes,
I don't know if it is anymore.
And it is not anymore. I just don't get this whole thing. And the question was also asked of the SIU AD if there was going to be teams opting out in the fall, which I thought, what? That's not going to happen. Yeah. Nobody's going to. If Western Illinois is 1-9, they're not going to opt out of their last game in the fall. That's not good. The spring has been weird and bizarre from the start. Everything was done to protect the fall.
Goes back to my column. We can't keep living like this in the fall. We can't.
Yeah. Well,
but maybe she has a point. I mean, what if games get canceled? If they're going to continue testing?
Then go get your shot.
What's going to be different?
Then go get your shot. That's how you stop getting tested. That's how it is.
NDSU is really pushing it.
Yeah,
for sure. They're not requiring it, and I talked to the president. They're not requiring it, but they sure are pushing it.
Brad Schlossman has a story out now from the Grand Forks Herald saying that some UND athletes will begin getting their COVID vaccine now. That's how you make sure that football gets back to normal. You want to eliminate opt-outs. You want to eliminate the thought of that happening. Go get your shot.
Brashani said that can come from the league. He said the league could stipulate that.
What do you think the chances are of that happening? I don't think it's very high.
You don't think so?
I don't.
I would
be wrong on
Patty
that.
Viverito would love to do it. I think she would. She hasn't told me that, and I asked her, and she just said, when will this ever end? So I think she's frustrated.
Yep.
I think she needs to find a new way of how to do this, and I think that's the only way.
If the league would have said in January, Kolpack, we're mandating everybody plays. You cannot opt out unless it's a Brock Spack situation where they literally ran out of players, then this would be a different conversation. But nobody did that, And as soon as Indiana State opened the door for it, when it happened, the middle of January, we were literally, the Bison started practice, I think, later that week, when there was no condemnation or discussion of it, then the door was open for this to happen.
What you're saying is
the Valley has nobody to blame on that.
It's time for the Valley to show some leadership, flex its muscle.
If they're going to do that, if SIU is legitimately upset like this, then somebody's got to. Then it's got to come from a league perspective, and they didn't do that. Nobody said anything.
Somebody's got to do something because we cannot do this next fall. We can't.
In fact, the league said we support Illinois State's decision. We support Western Illinois' decision to do that.
How would you like to be Logan McCormick's dad who drove 8 hours to Sioux Falls to watch the Coyotes and the Bison and then get there and have to turn around?
I get it.
How is that going to happen next fall? Would you buy a season ticket next fall?
If I'm vaccinated, yeah. I'm not thinking that.
No. If they continue testing,
they have to get vaccinated. That's the biggest thing in my mind. Answer your question.
If things don't change, if there's no stipulation of getting tested or getting vaccinated,
no, I'm not buying a ticket.
Would you buy a ticket?
No. Nope. And that's where the NCAA, Missouri Valley, FCS, whoever, has to step in and say, if we want to save our sport and make sure it happens on time and as normal as possible, then we have to make sure our athletes are vaccinated.
All right, so that's cranky reason number 5 right there. Am I up to 5 now?
You're doing pretty well.
Okay, we also one-time transfer rule. Can we go there?
Absolutely.
That's number 6.
I think, just to put a bow on what we're talking about here, do I think that's going to happen? Certainly the NCAA is not going to do it. So do I think individual leagues? I think so. I think you might see that from the big boys, and that would help.
Can the NCAA require it for its tournaments?
Absolutely.
That it can do.
Absolutely.
That may be a way, too.
But that doesn't matter for the big boy football. They don't govern FBS football. They do on the FCS, and that's a way we can...
And they do on the basketball tournament.
Right. So, yeah, they can go that route. I would be all for it. That's how you get back to answer all your questions. That's how it happens. They have to mandate that. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not going to hold my breath waiting on that. And the Missouri Valley's got to come out and say, this is what we're going to do. I am curious, do you think this will hold over into these bitter feelings with Hill and Spack and Petrino, and apparently the SIU has that nobody else in the Valley has said anything? Is that gonna linger?
I don't think the players care, do they?
No, I'm talking, but the people who have to meet in a Zoom room or actually in a room, the ADs and the presidents. Do you think that lingers?
It could be a little icy.
I think so.
It could be a little icy for sure.
I'm also not convinced that she's alone in thinking that, the SIU AD. I'm sure there's other people that just haven't said it. That I'm sure they're upset that Western opted out or that Illinois State decided to do what they do. I'm sure there are others. They haven't said anything. And that's why I think that's part of her frustration, too, on that front. This is the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank with Jeff Kolpack, Dom Izzo here as we get ready for Bison, South Dakota State. Jeffrey mentioned, obviously, a landmark day in the NCAA yesterday. First, the return of the normal recruiting cycle will happen. That will start on June 1st. That's a big deal for football and basketball. All they've been doing is Zoom. Now they can have camps again. And I was talking with Tyler Roll about this. That's the bigger part for them in June, is to actually have the athletes be back on campus. Obviously, the second huge legislation yesterday was the one-time transfer rule has now become effective. So starting July 1 is when the notice has to come in for all athletes of their intent to transfer, and they will not have to sit for football, men's and women's basketball, hockey, and baseball. We have talked about this for a long time.
Knew it's coming.
And so now here it is.
Here it is. The transfer portal now is becoming even more real, and I think you're going to see an influx of athletes here in the first year or two. At some point, reality is going to set in because 25% of these athletes who go in the portal maybe end up on the other side. That's what we're hearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's 75% who don't know what they're doing. That's a lot.
Yep.
At some point. And if I'm mom and dad of Johnny G, who has a half scholarship at NDSU, and I go in the portal, you better have a scholarship on the other side.
You better have a plan. Yep.
You better have something. And we're going to see the reality of this. And it's like, remember when those high school kids were declaring for the NBA draft? There was an influx of
left
them.
and right. Yep.
And for every Daryl Dawkins, there was like 2 or 3 guys who didn't make it and just ended up in desperation mode and not successful at all, blew their signing bonus. Yep. You're to see, not to that extent, but you're going to see the same thing where, think about this. you have a full ride at NDSU. Say you have a full ride at any FCS school. It's probably $20,000 a year, Dom.
Mm-hmm.
That's $20,000. And NDSU, you're getting cost of attendance, $23,000 a year for an out-of-state tuition, room books, all that stuff. And say you leave after your second year, you're giving up $60,000 worth of education. You better have that waiting for you on the other side.
And I think
Zeb Nolan said that.
Right. And I think your point is well taken on that. For a majority of the athletes that go in, it is not the grass is greener wherever they end up. I am curious, does this make FCS football, Summit League basketball, even more now the minor leagues to the Power Five? And I think that's a real concern, that you're going to see a player develop for a couple years in Fargo and then be able to say, okay, I can go play now in the SEC.
You know who else should be concerned about this? Division II.
Well, yeah, everything's going to trickle downhill. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. You don't think Division... You think NDSU, well, Braden Thomas. Wow, what an impact player he's been.
Parker Fox now is going to go play at the University of Minnesota after starring at Northern State.
So
absolutely.
If these Division II schools think it's just a Division I deal,
no, that's
forget
wrong
about
there.
it.
Nope.
Because eventually, the one-time transfer is a Division I issue, not Division II yet.
Yeah.
Why? What makes those players different?
I was going to say, that doesn't make any sense to me, and that will be changed.
That will change.
Yeah.
Within the year, I bet.
Yeah.
So if I'm a Division II player and I'll appeal to the NCAA and say, well, hey, this guy from Bowling Green went, why can't I?
And they will
Duluth?
win. And they will win that appeal.
Easy.
Yeah, they will win that appeal on that.
So if I'm Division II, the top teams in Division II, I'd be a little concerned about NDSU and all these players, all these teams losing players to FBS, because you know what? They got to replenish somehow.
My thought on this, because I know fans are going to be, well, why even get attached to a certain player if we know he's not going to be here? It's not like the Ben Woodside, Mike Nelson, Brett Winkleman were going to stay for 5 years. I did want this, and I'm still a fan of it. The players should be allowed to go where they want to go.
What do you think of Dave Richmond's idea of
not after first 2 years? Is that what I read?
After 2 years, which was originated by Matt Painter, the head coach of Purdue.
Purdue head coach.
Okay, you're free to go after 2 years. It's kind of like the NFL rule. You can't go to the NFL until your third year in college.
Correct.
After your third year. I like it. I like it.
I'd have to look at it a little bit more.
It's reality. I mean, he put a little dose of reality in this, where these pampered kids come in who've never been told no their entire life. They come in, and then all of a sudden Richmond, second day of practice, goes,
you're not good enough.
Rips him on his defense.
You're not good enough. Yep.
Which every high school kid coming into college
never hears that.
Right.
Never hears it.
Don't get foul trouble. That's what they hear in high school.
Right.
We need your offense.
Yep.
All of a sudden they come to a Summit League school, and Todd Lee or
Hendo,
Dave Richmond or Hendo go, you're not playing until you know.
Yeah.
And they go, well, I'm going to transfer. And then they go to, and Richmond's point is, they'll go to another school and they'll hear the same thing.
Yep. I think, let's look at David Jenkins, right? He's now on his third school in 4 years.
At Craig Smith, of all people.
So he started at South Dakota State, obviously, went to UNLV with TJ Otzelberger. Now he just got the Iowa State gig, did Otz, and Jenkins is now going to play for USD's old coach and Craig Smith at Utah. So 3 schools in a 4-year span. That is going to be the new reality, Kolpack. You're going to see that more and more. And I know how distasteful that is for yourself, who's covered college athletics for as long as you had, but this is where we're going. And it is free agency. It is what we're going to see
I
in
hate
college
to say
sports.
this because it's so overused, but that's where the teams with the culture are going to rule supreme. If you could get a group of guys together.
Like what the Bison have coming back for this coming winter.
Yep.
I mean, what they have is a rarity in itself. You have to imagine that everybody's calling Rocky Cruiser's number.
The older I get, the more I believe that those factors play such a big part in winning.
Will this take away, do you think, for the enjoyment for fans of these sports, specifically FCS football and mid-major basketball, because they're going to be hit the hardest?
I'm not sure.
Of this.
I think in this day and age, everything moves so fast anyway. I don't think it's going to be a big deal.
What also is going to happen is more and more freshmen are going to play right away because of this now. You know, the allure of what Gray Zabel's doing, that's going to happen more. Kobe Johnson, what he did last year for the Bison, what Grant Nelson did this year for the Bison basketball team. That's going to happen.
Why do you say that? Because you can't wait for him?
Correct. Because maybe my senior is gone because he went and transferred. We need our stud incoming recruit. He's got to play right away.
Or you go to the portal.
Right. That he's going to go and transfer somewhere, that we need a guy right away to come in and play.
Who are the top Division II football teams in the country? Northwest Missouri State.
Mankato's right there.
Mankato.
They were in the championship game. Slippery Rock's pretty good.
There's going to be a pipeline to the FCS in those schools.
No
doubt about it.
And it's probably already been there. We probably haven't noticed it a ton. And I'm sure it's going to happen more and more. It's definitely going to be something to watch.
I mean, they get some players who are really Division I caliber, but maybe they don't qualify academically at some schools.
Thomas is a Division I player. Braden Thomas, seeing what he's done.
Some. He's an FBS player.
Yeah, he's really talented. Absolutely. And that's recruiting on that is a weird thing. When people say, well, the Bison do a great job, they missed on him too. I mean, he went the Division II route. He went to 2 schools before he got to North Dakota State.
But NDSU's not going to apologize to Mankato because LSU didn't apologize to NDSU.
Right. And that's the way it's going to go. It's going to take an adjustment here.
I asked Stiglmeyer that. I go and about the question, and he said they're not going to do that. I'll believe it when I see it.
They're not going to do it in terms of taking guys.
They're not going to go down Division II and try to take guys.
Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. That's all coaches will say that. They want obviously guys from, and they have. SDSU's done that. They've gotten Big 10 guys, they've gotten Big 12 guys to come there and transferred in. But that's in there. I wouldn't be surprised if they were to go that route. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Okay, I feel better now. I kind of got it out of my system.
All right, then before we wrap.
This is like a psychology.
I appreciate that I was able to help you on this.
Do I have to pay you for this session?
No, don't worry about it. Give me a couple keys for the football game tomorrow and who's going to win.
Oh, obviously the quarterback at NDSU has to play a solid game, and he did okay last game. I mean, there's some signs that
that was the best he's been, I think. He didn't turn the ball over. That was the biggest thing. He plays like that, the Bison are going to win.
I feel like I've seen this game so many times because I have. It's going to be the same thing.
Tight game?
Yep.
23-20 kind of game?
Yep. Late field goal. 1 minute, 52 seconds left.
Ooh, you're getting precise here.
Jake Reinholdt's going to win this game.
All right. Well, there you go. I guess we don't even have to worry about watching it now tomorrow.
Can we edit that out?
Let's do a couple other predictions here before we wrap. Let's start with that SELA and SIU game. Southeastern Louisiana at Southern Illinois tomorrow. This is for a playoff spot, I think. It's a win and in. It's a win and in for SELA.
I haven't seen them play. I haven't seen a lot of teams play. I'm going to go with SIU.
Ooh.
I think they got a little hard edge.
They definitely have a lot of hard edge. Delaware at Villanova. I like Delaware in this game. I think they're going to win. They're good. I think the Blue Hens might have something going with old Coach Rocco.
Yeah, I like Danny Rocco. I like the way he can develop a team. I'm not sure about Villanova. They usually the big, tough, brute defensive team. Yep. I don't think they have that going this year, so I'm going with Delaware.
Lastly, Richmond and James Madison tomorrow. This game was supposed to be played much like the Bison game and SDSU played a few weeks ago. Now they'll play tomorrow.
Everybody, you always take James Madison. I'm taking JMU. That's why I'm taking Richmond.
Ooh, all right.
It's a weird year.
It is a weird year. Boy, if Richmond wins tomorrow, that would be real interesting on the seeding-wise.
I think in a neutral field, South Dakota State's favorite.
Yeah, Bison are a 2-point favorite right now.
So on a neutral field.
So it's a pick-em.
Yeah.
It's a pick-em game going on there. Reminder, our Bison pregame show is live tomorrow, 11 a.m. on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. Our live game blog begins at 2 with kickoff at 2:30. Post-game show will be with Mike and Eric. We'll have that. Jeff and I will have our bracketology show coming up tomorrow night to preview the field of 16. What are we shooting for here? I said 13.
13, right? Oh man, that would be good because it's different. How do you estimate the criteria this year?
Right. If we get 13, I'm having a parade for us on Monday if that's the case. But that you can check out
down Broadway or where we going?
We'll work something out. And then our live chat on Sunday morning at 10:30. The selection show starts at 10:30. We'll be on at Inforum.com. So join us there as we find out the field of 16 that comes out on Sunday. Looking forward to tomorrow. Should be a fun game.
It's gonna be, I'm looking forward to it now, Don.
Yep.
Thanks.
It'll be good stuff.
You reversed my psychology.
The airing of grievances is done with Jeff Kolpack. So for Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank. Bye.